Rush hour encounter. It was rush hour, and the train was crowded as always. Usually, I hate it. Squeezed into a corner, clinging desperately to the handrail above me, I was surrounded by men and women coming home from work or shopping or whatever it was that dragged them out into the shared misery of the commute. I felt arms, knees, elbows, and backs pressing all around me, crowding me tightly. People were reading newspapers or magazines, looking out the windows, or talking quietly, trying to forget how uncomfortable we all were. Every bump and lurch of the subway car caused us to sway, and I was forced to sway with them. It was all I could do to hang onto the rail, yet I felt like if I let go, I'd still remain standing, held up by the flood of people surrounding me. It was in this state that the train pulled into Cortelyou station. At this stop, as at every stop, I silently hoped some people would get off and ease the pressure. I watched some file out with relief, but not enough. More began to file in, then more. I gritted my teeth as they forced themselves into the already crowded car, compressing us even more. Finally, the doors closed and we began moving again, even more packed than before. Only after we had been moving for a while did I notice the woman in front of me. She was very attractive, absorbed in the newspaper she was reading. Her long red hair fell over the shoulders of a green blouse, and I glanced down to see her figure hugged by a light black skirt. She was facing away from me, and I realized with a jolt that the crowd had positioned us so that my body was pressed closely against hers. I tried to look away and not think about the awkwardness of the situation. She didn't seem to have noticed. Yet as the train swayed on the tracks, I found myself being pushed closer to her again and again. I could feel the curves of her silhouette through her skirt against my body, and with every bump, I was pressed against her. It wasn't hard to imagine a different scenario, one without the thin layers of clothing between us. I glanced down at her, then tried to focus on a cigarette ad on the wall as I was bounced into her again and again. She shifted slightly, and her movement brushed against me. It was too much for me. I felt a rush of nervousness as my body responded despite my efforts to stay composed. Sweat broke out on my face as I realized she might notice. She could feel me pressed against her and realize the situation. I bit my lip, trying to will my body to calm down, waiting for her reaction. Yet nothing happened. She continued reading the newspaper as I bounced against her, as if nothing was happening. She had to have noticed. Maybe she hadn't, was all I could think. Maybe she would think it was just an accidental bump, and I'd get away with it. I felt a little relief but decided not to push it. I had to end this before it got out of hand. I shifted myself a little to turn away as much as I could. Then I felt a light touch on my hip. A hand tucked a finger into the pocket of my jeans and gently pulled me until I was facing her again, my body pressed close once more. The woman glanced up from her newspaper. Her blue eyes locked on mine, and I felt the full impact of the moment before she looked down at the paper again. It was her hand that had pulled me back. The message was clear, she didn't want me to stop. Daring not to breathe, I began to sway with the train a little more. I tried to make it look as if it was just the movements of the car, but I moved with it to press gently against her. My hips bounced lightly against her, deeper against her. I felt pressure with every movement. She was responding to me. Among this crowd of people, we were silently sharing a secret. I leaned my head back as I pressed closer. Pleasure flowed through me as I felt her warm body against mine. Looking down at her, I could see her cheeks growing pinker, and she gripped the newspaper tighter. I glanced around us. No one seemed to notice or care. It was just the two of us in a sea of people. I let go of the rail with one hand and slid it down casually. My hand drifted between us to rest gently on her hip. I squeezed lightly, and I heard her inhale sharply as she pressed against me. When I felt her hand again, it wasn't as surprising as the last time. Her fingers slid to my zipper and pulled it down slightly. Then her hand slipped into my jeans and held my tool firmly. Freed, I pressed more closely against her. As casually as I could, I lifted her skirt slightly. It was only then that I discovered she wasn't wearing anything underneath. She was all naked. Then I moved my hand into her skirt. I was in full of joy. Her vertical lips were all wet as she was also loving the moments. I was overwhelmed by the sensation, and the natural rhythm of the bouncing train made the moment feel electric. She responded in kind, gripping my tool into her part tightly as I moved gently with the train's motion. I clutched the handrail tighter and heard her newspaper rustle as she tightened her grip on it as well. She was breathing heavily as I began to move more confidently, rubbing gently against her. Then she bit her lip and gave off a soft sound. I felt her body tense in rhythm as she reached her peak, and the sensation sent me over the edge. I couldn't hold back a soft sound as I reached my own climax. We were pressed together, shuddering, surrounded by people, but not caring. The train gave off a whine as it pulled into the next station. I flushed with panic as I hurried to adjust myself and zip up. Her hand smoothed her skirt into place. We arranged ourselves just in time as the train came to a stop and the doors opened. People began to file out. The woman turned away from me, and I heard the rustle of paper. Then she tore off the edge of her newspaper. She slipped it into my hand as she looked up at me once more. Her expression was calm and neutral, but I saw a flicker of amusement in her eyes for a brief moment. Then she walked out with the others. I looked down at the paper she had given me. It had a hastily scribbled message on it that read, "I'll be on this train next Tuesday. Hope you will be too. I guess rush hour isn't so bad, after all." I lifted her skirt slightly. It was only then that I discovered she wasn't wearing anything underneath. She was all naked. Then I moved my hand into her skirt. I was in full of joy. Her vertical lips were all wet, as she was also loving the moments. I was overwhelmed by the sensation, and the natural rhythm of the bouncing train made the moment feel electric. Please do subscribe to my channel. Let's begin today's story.